In Excel, you often need to combine a few worksheets to create a master sheet, or even a few workbooks to create a master workbook. Most users don't know how to do this. That's why in this video, I'm going to show you a simple, easy way to do this that's going to save you a ton of time. So as you can see, we've got sales for 3 regions: New York, Singapore, and London. Each has their own sheet with their own separate sales. So management needs to put this together in a combined schedule. So let's start with what everyday users end up doing and see where the problems are and why this doesn't work. Use is the copy paste repeat method. So we'll begin with the first sheet, go right to the top cell, and we'll press Control Shift and the right arrow. Then again Control Shift and the down, and we'll select the data, we'll go across, we'll copy. So of course we'll need to repeat this on every sheet until everything is done. So this is a bit of tedious work, but eventually it gets the job done. The problem, of course, with this is that when data updates, the schedule doesn't update and it's not dynamic in any way. So it's simple, but unfortunately simplistic and will result in problems later. So naturally, people will turn to formulas next. So let's see what formulas can fix exactly. I'm going to go with a function called the VSTACK function. The VSTACK function stacks every input table one on top of the other vertically, as the term suggests, vertical stack. So we're going to start off, go to the New York table, and we'll select the whole range. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift key, go to the last sheet, London, and that creates a reference called the 3D reference. And when you look at that, wouldn't you know it, we've imported everything. So this range of 3D reference suggests a row and a column reference and also a sheet range reference. So between New York and London, that's exactly what we want. So this is great. It's simple and it's automated. The problem comes that this only works with equally sized tables. So from C6 to 23, but if one of these tables expanded to row 50, for example, the other two stayed the same, you would import 27 different 0 rows for each of the other two tables. So this becomes a very messy proposition. So what if there was a way, though, to filter each of these rows of these tables before we stack them up together? I think that would be a better solution. If we were to expand our range from the 23rd row to allow each table room to grow to, say, 100 rows, as we discussed, a lot of zeros are going to come in, and that's going to be messy. So what we could also try here is range trimming. The symbol for range trimming, we put a dot there. As you can see, Excel doesn't even entertain the discussion. For those of you unfamiliar with range trimming, please refer to my other videos where I explain this concept in detail. But range trimming doesn't work on 3-dimensional references. So we're going to go with the approach of filtering this reference that we've put in place here. So first, I'm going to use a function called the let function, which essentially allows you to label sub-calculations. And then you use those sub-calculations in a calculation. I'm going to go let, and the first argument for let is the label and then the formula, and then the final argument is the calculation. I'm just going to call it A for now, and I'm going to put in A there. You can see nothing's changed. But I'm ready to use the symbol A instead of having to copy paste the whole calculation again. So the first thing I'm going to do is go filter. Now we want to filter A, and I'm going to close the parenthesis in advance. So essentially I want to go whenever A is not equal to 0, then I would like it to be excluded, or included, sorry, more to the point. So if I add that, it doesn't work. And the reason that doesn't work is it doesn't know which column to look at. This is a multiple column situation. So we've got to use the choose column function, choose cols, to specify which column it's got to look in. So we can pick any column. I'm just going to pick the first. If we do that, then Excel knows what we're talking about and it could conduct the filter for you. So as you can see now, There's no zeros in this range, and we filtered it successfully. So we could expand this range to be 1,000 or 10,000 or even 100,000. It would make no difference. It would carry on trimming or filtering before each table inputs. Now that is pretty good. It's now automated and it updates when the data updates, so it's dynamic. Problem is, this formula that does it is doing a lot. There are four functions involved. We couldn't just use the VSTACK function. We had to filter it. And unfortunately, we needed two helper functions, the let and the choose column function. So four functions is a bit much for beginners and also for sharing files. If a formula problem creeps in, there's a lot of maintenance that's needed potentially. So let's explore a solution where with one single function, we can handle all the filtering and even filter out errors, not just zeros. Let me introduce you to this recommended solution. Two column function, or the TOCOL as Excel calls it. TOCOL takes two key inputs with a third optional input. First is a table, and the second then is what to do with that table in the form of ignoring blanks, ignoring errors, or both. So what we're going to do, we're going to go and select our first range, and we're going to make that three-dimensional. So let's in fact expand that to 100,000 rows like we did previously. And now comes our second argument. So one is for ignoring blanks, two for ignoring errors, and three for both. Let's take both in case we have errors. So if we press enter, we have a single column solution that pulls all the sheets, as you can see. So this is now a simple matter of pulling this solution across, and then we can see we've derived the entire table. Now that took only a few moments to develop, and the solution is very simple. So we have an automated answer. We have something which dynamically updates, and the formulas are comparatively reasonable, not too complex. A beginner can handle this, and it doesn't take much maintenance. But a problem creeps in with these three-dimensional formulas. The same problem I'm about to show you applies to the VSTACK with the filter solution. So if I add another sheet, okay, and I put in a city, Sydney, which has sales, if you go across and have a look, you'll see that data does not pull in. And the reason for that is it's outside of my three-dimensional reference. I've started New York and ended in London. Sydney has come out of that. Now, there's a solution to this. What we could do is move Sydney within the New York to London range. And if you come in now, you will very clearly see there comes Sydney. So it is solvable, and one has to watch out for this. But this does take maintenance. If for whatever reason the sheet added falls outside of the first three sheets, it's not going to automatically update. So you may want to pull the last sheet to the very London to the very last sheet in the workbook. You will need to do that. So errors can creep in. But what if I could show you a non-formula solution, which is the recommended solution that we're going to apply to combining multiple sheets? So if we go to data, get data, that's the Power Querying automation section. So if we go, we want to get from an Excel workbook, and we go in, our book is called Combined Sheets. So you'll see that what has arrived is every single sheet Power Query sees. I can select multiple items and select things, or you can just click on the whole document. So what we want to do is transform these sheets. So you see what Power Query imports is two columns with the sheet names and embedded property of a table. And it sees each table object inside each sheet. So what we want to do, we simply click on expanding this, and we go OK. So what you'll see now is you'll see every sheet is in here, all the information on each sheet. So that includes these header sections, which we don't want. So our first task will be to get rid of these header sections. We want to get rid of the nulls. So the next thing that we want is headings. And you can see there's a function called the use the first row as header one. And we're going to click on that, and we'll give headings to our combined table. And of course, our last problem that we see that the headings repeat on each sheet. So all we need to do is simply filter that away. So if I go here to the second column and unselect region, we should be rid of that information. So because now the data already has the region, the spreadsheet's name's the same as region, so I don't want that column duplicated. So we will simply remove that column, and that's where we stand. So our final step is going to really check that the data type is correct for each bit of information. If we click here under home, you can see the data type. Text is fine here. Text is fine for the category column, and text is fine for the store column. The period column, text for the dates, and you can see the dates have been converted to serial numbers, and value is text as well. So it converted everything to texts. So what I like to do in the case of a date is I like to first convert it to a whole number. Sometimes Power Query has trouble converting from a text field to a date, and then I go ahead and convert that to a date. I do not want to replace the current step. I'm adding a two-step process into a date. And the last step would be to convert in this case, I would say whole numbers. Great. So we're ready to load. So we can go close and load. Or we can check close and load to. What options do we have? So if you check close and load to, you'll see you have various options. You can export this to a table. You could create even a pivot table. In our case, what we'd like to do, we'd like to add a new sheet with a table in. And there you go. We've got a table arranged which has everything in it, all three regions, all of their sales, and formatted nicely for us. Let's test if adding a sheet is handled correctly by Power Query. So if we go back to our workbook and we add a sheet for Sydney and we click Save there, we come across to our Power Query and we simply click Refresh. So as you can see now, if I go bottom, thumbs up, Sydney's been added. So this is the perfect solution. It's reasonably easy to set up. It's automated. It handles updates to the sheets, and it handles new sheets being added. So we've looked at 5 methods to combine sheets data into a central summary. The copy-paste method was simple, but a little simplistic. So when data changes, it doesn't change. It's also manually extensive. But if you have only a few sheets with static data, that's all you need. VSTACK was a little bit more automated, and the problem was the same, that it didn't update when the data changed. So it's also not ideal if you've got changing information. Then adapting the VSTACK to have a filter and an expanded range worked a lot better and adapted when there's changes on the sheets. The problem was that there's 4 functions we needed to make that work. So for beginners and for sharing workbooks, there can be problems that creep in with the formula. The TOCOL function was a better formula with a single function, easier to set up, and had all the advantages of updating with sheets and being simple to set up. Probably the best formula solution to go for. The problem occurs with both the TOCOLs and the VSTACK methods of course, was the issues of adding sheets. They fall outside the reference, it doesn't update. So one's got to be careful there. So these methods could work very well for you, the formula methods, if there isn't a lot of changes and you don't have to do it too repetitively on a less scaled basis. But head and shoulders above all the methods is the Power Query method, which handles the added sheets, which handles the change to individual sheets as well. And it's comparatively easy to set up. So this is the method that we definitely would recommend. But what if I have data across a few workbooks, not just a single workbook that I'd like to combine into a summary? Or if some of the sheets need to be unpivoted, they have multiple columns for each date instead of one single column for dates. These are among the questions we're going to address in the next few videos, so please join us for that. But thank you very much for joining us for this video. Please remember to like and subscribe if you find value in this material and you enjoyed this video. Stay notified of future videos, and it really helps us grow the channel. Thank you very much.